Welcome back inside the spread, Nesson's betting podcast, as the month of March continues and plenty of storylines around the sports world to get you up to date. Tim Crowley alongside Kasey Hudson as we get ready to roll. Kasey, very busy week in the sports world this week. Sweet 16 coming up, and maybe most importantly around the Nesson offices, baseball's back.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize, I'm going to use a Boston or Mass term here, how wicked it is when the crossover really comes alive. So everyone's getting ready for opening day, but it's also super exciting. And I'm really excited to be here at like the perfect timing to see what this is all about. So yeah, you said it. Baseball's coming in hot. March Madness is going strong. Hockey East. I was talking to Natalie Nora the other day for Frozen 4 stuff. So if you're into every sport possible, kind of now's the time outside of there being any football.
Yeah, no shortage, especially on the college side, especially for some local fans. Again, BC having a local start to that tournament as well on the hockey side. And I don't know, how's your bracket looking? I went on the show a lot last week and was really hyping up St. John's only for a second round exit. But obviously what a great matchup it was.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a lot about like the initial bracket bust that already took place. I had to teach Travis that you have to print multiple of your brackets so that you have rippable ones for therapy. I more so went a little heavier in the bracketology for the women's basketball tournament, and Vanderbilt kind of messed me up a little bit. And then there's another one. Oh, South Dakota getting through. That went through my bracket for a loop. And after the news of Juju Watkins, well, we'll see what happens because I had USC going super far. So, yeah, I already had to print out my extra pieces of paper so that I can get my therapy going as this week progresses. How's your bracket looking?
First of all, again, hope that Juju's going to have a speedy recovery as well. One of the best players we get to watch on a regular basis too. Keegan and I talked about it last week. I guess having the boring picks with a lot of one seeds has helped. So I think my Final Four still should be in decent shape, but we're going to see how it goes against Sweet 16 matchups coming up this weekend. But plenty to dive into. We're going to talk a lot of baseball in just a little bit. But earlier this week, the Patriots making a little bit of a splash. They got very active in free agency to start through the tampering period in the early days, but they still needed that top receiver for Drake May, and it appears that they finally have one. Stefon Diggs coming into New England on a 3-year deal, $69 million, $26 million guaranteed. Kasey, what were some of your first thoughts when you saw this deal? And it looks like the Patriots start to finally get that pass catcher they really needed.
It's really funny, actually, because on chat last week, Travis and I, which we typically agree on everything, we were on opposite sides on like this signing, the potential of it, and whether or not we wanted it to happen. At this point, I was Team Diggs. Bring him into New England. Travis was not. So I tried not to be that annoying person on the team that like screenshots things when it happens and then sends it to everyone as if they didn't get the notification themselves. So I refrained. But look, considering where the Patriots are at, considering how clear they've made the message of rebuilding, what the timeline of them looking for this newfound success is going to be, the establishment of the culture now with Mike Vrabel and company, if Diggs can keep his attitude in check, I'm fine with it. I think that he can be a veteran presence. We needed a veteran when it came to wide receiver anyway, because you're going to have somebody that's going to elevate the play of a sophomore quarterback in Drake May. So I wasn't mad at it. I think that he's actually going to do much better than he's getting credit for. We just had a whole argument or debate about whether or not this is a good choice or not. And I was like one of the lone wolves. It was like, guys, just let it cook. Like, Diggs is going to be fine. I think that he has the potential to make a comeback here. Maybe not as far as some of the betting odds have it, but I still think that he has a potential for a comeback. What did you make of it?
The initial reaction was that the narrative for so many years is of upgrading talent around here, particularly at that position. Like, that goes back even before Tom Brady left. Even thinking back to his last season, and that was something that I really thought about when I was trying to figure out my first thoughts on this. Is when was the last time the Patriots had a receiver with this much upside? I think back to the 1 week of pre-chaos Antonio Brown that they had with Tom Brady. You just think of like those like little signings like that, the Josh Gordon signing that was there in flashes, but didn't really get as much of Josh Gordon as I'm sure the Patriots hoped. So that's where I kind of want to dive into this. How long has it been since the Patriots had a receiver with this much upside? I think everyone thinks of the Randy Moss and kind of picking him up, at a lower level, rescuing him from the Raiders, and obviously turns into what he is, then there's years like Chad Ochocinco, which is one catch in the Super Bowl, a couple catches for a team that goes to the Super Bowl. I don't know, Kasey, what do you think about when you look at some receivers that have come through here? Is there a decent comp for Diggs? Obviously, again, coming off the injury kind of plays into that as well. But I'm trying to figure out still for the last few 24, 48 hours what the right comp is for this Diggs deal.
Yeah, this was kind of a brain buster for me, but then considering the storyline, considering actually the whole debate that I just had with my lovely team, a number of guys are putting him in the same headline as washed up. Why did we bring this washed player in? And when you think of that, the only comparison that I directly drew it to immediately was Randy Moss, because of the expectation and the hopes that I have for what he can do, the leader that he has to be at this point of his career. But yeah, some people that are not on board with this signing, they're comparing it to just kind of thinking that his time is at the end here. He's more just that wide receiver 2 or 3. He can't really wear that wide receiver 1 hat per se. And the right team, the right system, the right coaches, the right play calling, that can change the caliber of a player in its entirety. The injury I'm not too concerned about, because medicine has changed. We're seeing guys bounce back from all kinds of things these days, and this team was ready to contest to sign Chris Godwin, who had a gruesome injury, one should say, and back money behind that. So just thinking of the money, the headlines, and everything else, and what I hope Diggs is wanting to do, because he doesn't want to come into this as a wash player. He's still looking at years added to his career. So he knows that this has to make sense. This has to work out favorably. He's got to put up the right numbers. And he chose to go to a rebuild team. Chargers were on the topic of conversation, and they're going to be leads ahead when it comes to having a championship conversation. So I want to balance it out by comparing it to Randy Moss. That feels kind of basic, though. Where'd your mind go?
Yeah, the other one, and our producer Ethan had kind of thrown this out in our meetings leading up to this, was Brandon Lloyd. Similar age when he came in here. Brandon Lloyd was really productive in that Patriots offense back in 2012. Had 4 touchdowns, little south of 1,000 yards. And I feel like if that's what Stefon Diggs can come in here and do, if he's flirting with 1,000 yards, which he was on pace to do again last season before the injury with Houston, right, they'll take that every day of the week, because the Patriots haven't had that in quite some time. Again, dating back to the end of the Brady days, and then didn't really have an option like that for Mac Jones. Drake May didn't have one last year, and I think that's what makes this conversation so interesting. The Patriots know what Diggs is at his best, maybe as well as anybody. He had 8 touchdowns in 10 career games against them, specifically during his time with the Bills. But if they can get anything close to that, and even if he's just out there, and again, you're talking about one of the best route runners in the sport, how much of a difference that makes for Drake May, just having that ease state of mind that, all right, I have a veteran that knows what he's doing, can get open, as often as Diggs does. The injury, I think, is super interesting, because that also opens it up, especially for the purposes of this show, to one of the more interesting prop bets going into next year in terms of NFL Comeback Player of the Year. He has a lot of competition. BetOnline opened the odds for this at 20-1 for Diggs next year. Is that a flyer that may be worth taking, especially given the volume of targets he should get in this offense, given that he is far and away the best offensive player at that position?
Yeah, considering... No, that's true. And considering the role that he has to play getting here, they're looking for the wide receiver that was the 6th most targeted receiver just 2 seasons ago. So, yeah, workload, I would say, makes it an attractive or an appealing look ahead. But then I look at the list of other guys that are going to be making comebacks this upcoming season. And when I see Aiden Hutchinson's name in the mix, I mean, what the Lions need to do, what he means to the Lions, what his production was pre-injury, and what he's going to be able to get back to, he just kind of leads the conversation for me. I'm still seeing Christian McCaffrey in the mix, Dak Prescott. So there's just maybe 2 to 3 names that stand out a little bit more. So even if he comes in and ends up being the workhorse this team needs him to be, it depends on how the Patriots compete as a whole in the AFC. And there's probably a team or 2 that might lead the way in that. So if you want, you could throw a little bit of pizza money towards that. But I think that there's just a couple guys that are probably going to have that more favorable swing when it comes to the end of all of this, because of what their team's going to require from them and what they'll actually be able to produce, that we can solidify say, and this moment will happen.
I think that's totally the right mindset of how to approach this, because I like the flyer. I really do. I like the pizza money example. I think that's great.
That was the first thing I was taught about betting, pizza money. And I was like, that's fine. You are curbing my diet. So helping in many ways.
Because I really like the idea of just a flyer on it, because I do think he's going to get a ton of targets in this system, and I think Josh McDaniels is going to design the best way to get him the ball.
Yes.
But like you mentioned, it's just the names here. And we think about how the awards work in the NFL, and they're so quarterback driven at times. And I think that's what makes this tough is you look at some of the names on this list. There's a lot of quarterbacks too. Dak Prescott's on there, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy up in Minnesota.
McCarthy is going to be a really favorable one, considering what they need him to do if he can come in and take over the team.
Like and again, like you're looking at 10-1 odds for McCarthy. Like that could be like worth some value there too. I love that you spotlighted that. But again, I like the Diggs value, but I think you're totally right that it's just the other names on this list and knowing what they're going to be. Hutchinson's obviously the favorite at plus 200, but I don't know. I kind of like the pizza money idea on Diggs. I think that's the right way to go about it. Again, very early after this deal, we're in the last few days, which is kind of reaction to this. But how do you see this, if anything? I don't think DraftKings has moved anything yet, but do you see any sort of movement on the lines for some of the areas to look at the Patriots next year, whether that's to make the playoffs, potentially compete in the division? Do you see any of those really getting any movement after this Diggs deal?
I feel like I saw a little bit of jump in numbers because when you look at it, we always know that the Bills are the top of the conversation for the AFC. But then also taking into consideration, we don't know what the Dolphins are going to look like. So that kind of gives you a leg up when it comes to the Patriots in this rebuild. So considering, I don't know if I see the Patriots getting past the Bills, but if they can go and they weren't too far off in certain contests, and they've got the right pieces in terms of like making just enough change going around. There's still time to add some pieces in. But yeah, the numbers switched up a little bit for them to be able to top the East. I wouldn't jump into that either quite yet because the Bills are still the most consistent. They didn't have to do a lot of restructuring. And when you're putting new pieces together, it's that test of like, okay, is this functionality actually going to pay off or not? There is question marks around Diggs between the injury, the time in which he'll actually be impactful, and his attitude as a whole. Can they get an offensive line in front of Drake May that's going to actually give this team some liveliness to the run game and not have it be this one-dimensional game every single time they hit the field? So just too many question marks for me to throw them at the top of the East.
Yeah, I'm not ready to put them there either. And I think just really, if anything, the line to look at is this defense is going to be so much better. I think we all felt that way after the initial wave of free agency. Now my question is, how much closer, if any, does this Diggs deal get them to maybe, sniffing a 7 seed and sneaking in? I think Colin Cowherd had him on his show the other day as a playoff team and coming in second place in the East, which, because there's so many questions for me, at least in Miami, maybe that's a conversation that's being had closer to the season. We see how Diggs looks in training camp because all injury updates that we've heard so far sound pretty positive and sound like he's on path for week 1. So I don't know. I want to see if any of just the like pure make the playoffs tickets move at all the next few weeks, because I think maybe that's the conversation to have, is this get them a little closer to that final wildcard spot.
Yeah, I think that once we get past the draft, that's where you really want to kind of take a closer look and jump in on anything. Like right now, I'm still seeing again, I touch on the fact that the Dolphins are looking more credible. I could pitch to say that the Patriots, with all the pieces doing their job and functioning in their role, could give the Dolphins a run for their money. Jets are in their own situation of a rebuild. I'm not kind of throwing them in the mix by any sense. So like the Bills are going to be their biggest comp here overall. But as for kind of snatching a wild card spot, look at the doubt that the Broncos had all over them. Like they weren't even expected to have 5 wins this previous season. And I feel like because a number of people are not on board with some of the signings, but I don't challenge the picture that Mike Vrabel puts together. I trust what he puts together because he's not always jumping for the flashiest name. Yeah, they needed a name on this roster, but he does a really good plug and play method to make it make sense. And I think that McDaniels has also got specificity to how he creates his offensive roster. So I would say I like the wild card idea. I think that they're going to be one of those teams kind of underestimated like the Broncos were to a degree coming into this upcoming season.
This is going to be a very fun conversation to have after the draft because, again, are you adding a premier tackle into this mix? Are you adding Travis Hunter? I think there's a lot to be talked about there and see what this talent looks like. And there's going to be a lot of talk about that across the NESN airwaves the next few weeks. So if you're enjoying the show today, you can catch new episodes of our football podcast, Foxborough Rush. Those episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can check out George Bellecchi and Sean McGuire on the latest Patriots mock draft, taking into account all of the moves the Patriots have made in free agency, and now even adding to that with Stefon Diggs. You can catch the show on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. All right, we'll shift from football to baseball, and what a great week. First of all, happy opening day. It was a great time of year, and it just feels so energized to have baseball back and have this Red Sox team, not just back on the field, but really just back in the conversation. Like how good that feels around the city.
Oh my gosh. Well, I grew up with a massive Red Sox fan, and one of my really good friends is a massive Red Sox fan. So that was already a known thing coming into New England for me. And I've heard about the excitement around everything. I'm witnessing it and feeling it myself now. I mean, just the top of this week, everybody, like the planning, the orchestration of preparing for opening day. I never realized the magnitude of it. So it's pretty sick. Happy opening day to you as well. And what better way to be excited about a season than to have, the names that are on this Red Sox roster, the prospects, top prospects when it comes to the MLB as a whole. So there's just so many different narratives around this team that make you so excited to see how it all going to play out. And you've got some previous Red Sox players that think they're going all the way. So that's what makes it that much more fun to get this season going.
I can't wait for this team to return to Fenway next week and see what the energy is going to be like early this season in April. 2 series before that, they go to Baltimore on the second part of this opening road trip. They start the season down in Arlington, Texas against the Rangers, a 4:05 first pitch on Thursday, and the long-awaited debut, the regular season debut, in a game that actually matters for their big offseason pitching acquisition in Garrett Crochet to take the ball, who has been just phenomenal throughout spring training. Was there a more fun player to watch? And there were so many to pick from. Obviously, a great camp from Marcelo Meyer. A lot of the prospects looked great this spring. Watching Garrett Crochet take the mound, it just wasn't fair at times. This is someone, I think it was 18 strikeouts per 9. Like, he was going right at hitters all spring. The stuff looked great. Every reason the Red Sox wanted to watch him, he put on display this spring. Now we get to see it in a real game.
I know. He definitely lived up to the hype. And the part that stood out to me the most, because you hear about it, which again, a lot of things so far for me have been hearsay. Now I get to experience it, but his strikeout to inning ratio was dumb. That's all everybody just kept telling me. And I was like, okay, do you want to elaborate on this? And then spring training happens and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, this guy is for real. And then, some of the question marks is going to be like having that starter role, having that full-time role. What's that going to look like? But I feel like spring training just already showed you how hungry he is. And then without reaching a contract extension before opening day, I mean, there's still a little bit of time in terms of when they're back home, but he didn't want to negotiate it throughout the season. So it tells you you're coming in with a prove it on top of a prove it. And he's just such a sick player. George and I were talking about it on chat. He's not far off. I think top 3 when it comes to the Cy Young conversation as well, for a number of reasons. So he's living up to the hype, but I can't wait to see it in full swing. The translation between spring training to the real season, but it seems like the real deal.
He's certainly my favorite in the Cy Young race. I think he was, only behind Skubal in Detroit in terms of the preseason odds. So that's certainly one to watch. And we talked about that a lot on the spread last week. This should be a very exciting one with him taking the mound. I was talking to Jonathan Papelbon the other day, and he was practically doing, cartwheels to get to have this type of power pitcher that just goes at people in the zone. And it should be really fun to watch Crochet on opening day. He gets the ball for the Red Sox. The Rangers are going to counter it with an old friend of Boston and Nathan Eovaldi, who gets the opening day start for them. The Red Sox opened at a 1.5 run favorites for opening day. So I think the matchup that I want to get into is some of the pitcher props for this group as well. Mm-hmm. For Crochet, the line set at over under 6.5 strikeouts, over -150, under plus 115. And I don't think anyone's outsmarting Vegas here. I think everyone knows that this could be a day where Crochet racks them up.
Oh my gosh, I think that it has to be. And plus, you're looking at a couple of times last year when he got his opportunities, and I feel like he kind of made these numbers look so minute sometimes. So I like the over opportunities, especially when it comes to him and strikeouts. I know the Rangers are in the conversation for being one of those top teams out west, especially to kind of maybe have a further postseason run. They're trying to answer some questions over their previous 2 seasons, but I like Crochet's numbers when it comes to the amount. I'm going to go with the over 6.5 on this one for sure.
I would join you, and I think this is a game where it's early in the season. There might be some extra swing and miss. Nathan Eovaldi's stuff is still really good too. I think this could be a day where you hit the over for both starters. On the offensive side, it's also a chance to see what some of the power looks like on both sides. The Rangers still have a really good lineup. I think for me, I'm still not as high on them. Still probably to win the West, but I'm just not as high on them as everyone else is. But it's understandable to see why with their lineup. They could have some power. But on the Red Sox side, look at maybe some guys that could leave the yard on opening day. Rafael Devers has gone deep on, I believe, his last 2 road opening days, which would have been off Garrett Cole, shocker, in 2022 against the Yankees, and then did it last year against Luis Castillo in Seattle. I don't know. That's a little trend that may be one you look into. I believe he's plus 300 to go deep on opening day. Could Rafael Devers be a little sprinkle in Texas?
Ooh, you're giving me another pizza money challenge.
I think so. I like this pizza money a lot more than the Diggs than the Diggs 20-1. I'll tell you that. Way more confident here.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's so worth it because then you end up getting these surprises out here. I feel like I'm gonna lean towards Duran on this one. I when you're talking, putting a little sprinkle down on something, and then obviously like the payback ratio on this one. Kind of the conversations coming out of spring training and stuff, kind of sticking with that prove it and some of those headlines that have been revolving around. There's a number of guys that are going to have to prove their power, and that's going to have to be the game that they do it in. And there's going to be some weak spots where they can kind of try to pressure the Rangers, and I feel like Duran's going to have the ability to kind of rise to the occasion on this one. So when I talk about pizza money, I'm going to actually go and put some pizza money over on Duran.
Do you like it as the leadoff home run of the game, or maybe at some point later in the game?
Some point later. I'm not going to get crazy and go lead off.
It'd be fun. I like the spark. I mean, he's the spark plug, so I mean, it would be fun, for first step out of the season. But I don't know. It's good value there, plus 500 too. I think someone goes right, and they had a couple home runs on opening day last year in Seattle, so that should certainly be an area to watch. And again, a lineup that can certainly, this has been one of the best offenses in baseball for years, and they look even better. Alex Bregman's going to be in that mix too, so it should be a lot of fun. First run prop is something I looked at too. Red Sox minus 165 obviously makes sense as the road team. Rangers plus 125. Who do you see scoring first on opening day? Stream the entire Sox season with a NESN 360 annual plan, available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today.
Ooh, this one's a good question. I had a couple of guys in the mix, and I changed my mind after talking to George yesterday, so I'm just going to put that out there. But in terms of the first run, actually, what's your answer first? I'm not going to copy, but I'm going to see what you had.
I think they score in the first inning. The Red Sox do. So I would take them there. Again, it's not a ton of value, but it feels like if you want to sprinkle that in with something else, if you want to parlay it, that feels like a good start to get some value there. I do think they'll score early. I think the top part of that lineup, the top 4, I love the way that Alex Cora seems to have that constructed with Duran, Devers, Bregman, Casas. There's so much thunder there. I think someone's bound to strike on opening day. There's going to be a lot of juice in this team.
Yeah, I like it. My only concern is I feel like because coming into this matchup, I think Red Sox will be stronger when it comes to responding defensively. And I think that the Rangers are going to try to make a quick and fast opening as to like what their offense can deliver. They didn't have to make too many moves in the offseason, but operations wise, they got the players that they were looking for. So not in a bad way. I feel like the Rangers are going to try to do a tone setter here, but I think that the Red Sox are going to respond, and that's going to be encouraging because what we want to see is more of a consistent defensive respond in these moments.
We can open this up to the rest of the series, and I was happy that DraftKings had this on there. For a series outcome, again, 4 games set down at Globe Life Field, a series split at plus 160, the Rangers plus 165, and the Red Sox at plus 210 to win the series, which I think I might be more inclined to lean into. I think they have the pitching advantage in most of this series, even without a few starters that are going to start the season on the injured list with Bayo and Cutter Crawford and Lucas Giolito. I like how they line up throughout the course of the weekend. Walker Buehler goes on Saturday. Richard Fitz goes on Sunday. Again, Crochet, I like him with the edge on opening day. I would be inclined to take the Red Sox solely because I think they match up better from a starting pitching series or starting pitching matchup throughout the course of this series.
Yeah, I'm going with the Red Sox on that one. I feel like the Rangers are going to try to have their testing moments in those first couple of innings, but series as a whole, I think that the Red Sox are going to have the better rotation in my opinion, because there's some pieces the Rangers are going to have to adjust with being without. So even though they got players in return, I think that name, statistics, quality, Red Sox have the stronger hand in this mix.
Should be a very fun one throughout the course of the series, both on opening day and all weekend long. It's gonna feel good to see this team play meaningful games finally and get ready to go, because this spring training felt like it, especially after the Bregman deal, right, to start camp, the anticipation just grew so quickly, because there's been I feel like this offseason has taken a few starts where they always talk about, baseball is a marathon, not a sprint, but it went through like a few different paces where winter meetings come. Garrett Crochet is a Red Sox. Walker Buehler falls a few weeks later.
Silence.
Then that little silence was heard. Like it was like 6 weeks of that. That's all. And then boom, right at the start of camp.
Wait, don't forget the drama on. Oh, we lost Bregman, because we started hearing the numbers coming out of Detroit, and everybody was going severe depression. It felt like a complete loss. And then the quick pivot to like, no, we actually got him, like without giving him the long-term deal. And he chose Boston over Detroit. So that was dramatic, to say the least.
I was so mentally just like when I remember the night he signed it, I was covering a Celtics game against San Antonio, and I just remember hearing that like little whispers after Joe Mazzulla's press conference. Like I heard Bregman, and I'm like, why am I hearing that here? And then I'm like, I'm like, did he sign with the Red Sox? Like, yeah. And so then obviously that changes the course of your night. But I was just so out of like that realm of possibility of that deal still happening. I was writing everything Nolan Arenado for 3 days on NESN.com.
Oh my gosh.
which feels like an entire day. And look who comes to Fenway for opening day with the Cardinals too. It's funny how it works, but it just felt like there's been little of those peaks and valleys of pace throughout the offseason. There was just so much up and down, and waiting to see what the next move was, then a sprint of moves. Now to finally see this team in action, I can't wait.
I know. And then the other competition or like conversation that just kept going round and round we go was which of these prospects was going to make the opening day roster. And then we find out Christian Campbell gets the tap. And I think he just also brings versatility to the lineup, or like where they can use him most. He's not coming in being hell-bent on one situation over the other, but I feel like this prospect pool is going to get the look that it deserves this upcoming season. Campbell getting things started, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the other guys come the second part of the season overall. So a lot of factors that play into all of it, but it's going to make it that much sweeter versus the Rangers. I think that what a better way to kind of get things going outside, like opening day at home, that is, other than a team that's actually trying to get like the same level of push, because people think that the Red Sox are going to be an underdog or, a dark horse in the competition towards getting further in the postseason than beforehand.
Yeah, last note on them. Again, we've talked Red Sox odds quite a bit the last few weeks on the show, but now that opening day is finally here, is there a later in the season, postseason future that you like out of the group? They're, minus money to make the playoffs, minus 125. They're still the third best odds on DraftKings to win the AL East. I think that might be the area to go, because again, the Yankees are still going to be a good team. They're the reigning American League champions for a reason, but that rotation's a lot different without Garrett Cole, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. And that's the same kind of story in terms of starting rotation worries for the Orioles.
Right.
That feels like if you're looking for value on a postseason future for the Red Sox, like they're going to be a playoff team. I think that's very unanimous to say across the board right now. But the odds on, I feel like the AL East conversation's heightened the last few weeks, but maybe the odds haven't matched that. That feels like value if you're going to look for a later season future for the Red Sox.
Definitely valuable, because you're still looking at them being, slotted to contend with the Yankees. There's conversation. I wouldn't be surprised to watch the numbers move around over the next 60 days in terms of like the Orioles. There's just the Red Sox did what they needed to do in terms of building out a team to compete, for one. For two, that defensive element with bringing in Bregman, I just can't stress that enough, because there was a number of games that were just narrow misses, and it was because of the inability to defend, as well as they were trying to be consistent in scoring and offenses. With the Yankees, I just have a couple of question marks. They've got some untimely injuries that are coming into play, so you also don't know which players are going to show up at what point of the season to try to tilt things in favor of the Yankees. So this is a kind of a really good sneaky path for the Boston Red Sox. And then I just touch back on those pieces that they can count on getting over the second half of the season hump, that's where we're really going to see if this team has what it takes. And I feel like they're going to be able to have the versatility out of a number of players. They're going to have young guys that they can tap on need be to make sure that everybody is staying as fresh as possible to continue to deliver at the perfect points of the season. So I like it a lot. Tampa Bay Rays, y'all know where I'm from, but they're young. They're trying to figure out some start over points. And yeah, the whole thing about them maybe not having the proper stadium. So you're talking about players having to reacclimate their style of play because they're going into a smaller stadium, and there's a lot of emotions around that. So I love the AL East. I love the numbers there, but I even would contend to go as far, like a little further out of the division to say how well they'll compete.
Should be a very fun one in Boston. Again, the Red Sox trying to make the postseason for the first time since 2021. All starts opening day. Red Sox Rangers 4:05 first pitch. You can watch on NESN and watch all season long as the Red Sox make that push, hopefully back to October. If you're enjoying the show today, be sure to check out NESN's daily sports podcast, Boston Has Entered the Chat. We talk about the trending sports news in Boston and around the country. You can catch the show on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. All right, Kasey, before we get out of here, there's still a lot of storylines across opening day around the major leagues that have some Red Sox ties. We'll have Red Sox fans interested for other reasons. Let's go to Braves Padres for a second. Chris Sale, old friend, again, the reigning National League Cy Young Award winner, he gets the ball on opening day. He hasn't made an opening day start since he did it with the Red Sox in 2019. Mm-hmm. He'll be another, we talked about it with Crochet and Eovaldi, a strikeout tab to watch on this day. Set at 5.5 strikeouts for the over-under, over plus 125, under minus 165. I like Sales over there too.
Yeah, well, he's coming off of injury, and I know that this is what the numbers want you to kind of bite into. Like, can he really come in and deliver over 5.5 strikeouts? But considering the competition with the Padres, like, I don't really think that they're going to be monitoring him too much because the Braves are relying on him to come in and successfully pick up why they paid him to come in the first place. So I'm actually going to go on the over on this one for the plus 125. If it was a different team, then I maybe wouldn't lean so heavily into thinking that he's going to come in and deliver, but over 5.5 for the caliber of Sale, yeah, count me in on trying to get some value here.
Would like to think there's some juice there with him too, especially as you mentioned with the injury, missing his playoff start against the Padres last year and the Braves fall in that wild card series. Right. That should be a fun one to watch. Heading back to the East Coast for a little bit, Brewers-Yankees is the first game of the day, so Red Sox fans that need some time to kill, obviously, this is on the second screen. You should be watching pregame coverage with Tom Caron and NESN, obviously. But if not, Brewers-Yankees, first game of the day up in the Bronx, which, by the way, that's a national game on ESPN. Joe Buck calling baseball for the first time in, I think, 4 years, with the exception of that Cardinals reunion last year. I never got the Joe Buck hate. I think it's going to be great to listen to him again calling baseball. So that's plenty of reason to tune into this game itself. I'm sure Red Sox fans will want to see how the Yankees do on opening day. They're a favorite minus 155 on opening day against the Brewers plus 130. Who do you like up in the Bronx?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Yankees on this one, which is a rarity. You guys will barely hear me say that if I have a chance to not. But like you said, while you're watching the pregame show, you could be rooting for the Brewers to at least make this one interesting. But this is where you're going to have to see those other pieces be able to come in and contest for the Yankees. So injuries aside, we've got to see how deep their rotation can actually be and how well it can compete. So I'm going to stick with the Yankees on this one. Again, you can't count them out. They're still top-notch players on this roster regardless. This is going to be a tone setter for them, though. They have to.
I'll join you. Again, want to see, like you talked about, the depth of this rotation, what it looks like without Garrett Cole for the duration of the year, and a very veteran lineup. A lot of older guys that are coming in that have had great success. Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt obviously come to mind. Very interested to see what those guys do, but it feels like the veterans always find a way to rule opening day. They really do. They really do. One I forgot to put on here, and it was a big storyline last year for the Red Sox and paid off as one, is the Tyler O'Neill opening day home run streak going to continue? I have to go check what his odds are for an opening day home run, but this would be 6. He's shooting for 6 in a row, which is absolutely insane to think about with him. You know, everyone went nuts because I think it took him to the 8th inning in Seattle last year. It was so talked about, leading up to it. He's at 5. Can he do 6? And it'll be interesting to see how he does with the Orioles. We just talked about one of the New York teams as well. The Mets are going to be a big storyline this year. Everyone knows that the Juan Soto saga dominated the headlines throughout the end of free agency before he signed with the Mets.
Blew up the headlines.
Yeah. Well, and there's Red Sox connections in here too. He was the talk of the Red Sox world before he signed with the Mets. The Mets take on the Astros, who obviously the big signing at the end of the offseason for the Red Sox with Alex Bregman coming over from the Astros. How do those two teams look? The Astros minus 130 on opening day. The Mets at plus 110. Who do you like between Houston and New York?
This one was kind of tough for me because we just kind of talked about it with the Yankees a little bit when it comes to the depth of rotation. There's a little bit of a drop off here for the Mets when it comes to their rotation, but you got the best hitter in the game. Like, you've got the biggest name, one of the top 5 biggest names in the MLB. There's no way you come out here and don't make a statement, I would say. So I'm actually going to go with the Mets on this one. I think that they're going to try to have a strong opening day statement. I almost made a case for Manaea, like, going to a different team. Sean Manaea maybe even coming to Boston for a second. I'm a big fan of how he stepped up, closing out the Mets season, showing up for them in the postseason. Like, he's one of those guys that just shows that he has that clutch gear. And his role is going to be a little bit bigger this season, especially with the gap in rotation at the moment. So I like the Mets for this.
I'm totally with you in the slight concern of what their rotation looks like. When I was trying to throw together what I thought the divisions would look like, that was the only reason I had the Mets underneath the Phillies. Is I think Philadelphia's rotation.
I have them under the Phillies too.
Yeah. That's my top 3. I have Braves, Phillies, Mets. I think was kind of how I laid that out.
Ooh, okay. So this was a debate between George and I had the Braves at first. There's too many of their star players coming back from injuries, and I just don't know what the acclimatization period is going to be. So if they have a slower start and then they have to pick things back up, the Phillies are just too complete across the board. I mean, not only with their rotation, but Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, like the guys that they have smashing it. It's scary, and they're going to have a really bad taste in their mouth after how last season ended for them. So those are scary factors that kind of play into everything. But the Mets, they dropped to 3 for me as well. I couldn't put them higher.
It might be my favorite division to watch in baseball this year, solely for that reason of seeing how that 3 kind of evens out and how that affects the playoff picture in the National League. Obviously, that's going to be the main competition for one of the last games at night in terms of the National League. Something tells me an NLCS matchup will be one of those 3 teams. And then obviously the defending champions in the Los Angeles Dodgers, they open up, get their rings, have their whole ceremony against the Detroit Tigers. And it's a challenge on opening day, getting a Cy Young favorite in Skubal against them. Dodgers minus 162, Tigers plus 136.
Yeah, I got to go the Dodgers here. Like, they didn't have to do too much in the offseason. They still brought in some key pieces. And then, of course, as a Tampa Bay gal, to see a healthy Glass in the mix and to see, how he'll be able to step up this season, I'm just kind of rooting and pulling for him and his success. So I got to go with the Dodgers.
I'll join you. I think they'll live up to the festivities. They kind of got that head start in Tokyo. Again, there's some question marks. Again, there's that weird story this week with Mookie Betts has lost like 23, 25 pounds. Something happened right before that trip, and he's still trying to get his body right. Interested to see what happens with Mookie. I mean, we've had guys get sick. I know Roman Anthony said he lost like 12, 15 pounds earlier in camp, but for someone like Mookie at his stature too, like that's a lot to come back from.
It's a lot. Yeah, and that's going to mess with his power, depending on how much time it takes him, and then if, mass to muscle, depending on what takes place. But those big travels, that was the thing about them opening up so far away. It's not even just the flight out there. Culturally, it's also how well can they eat and nourish their body. Some guys are more picky, so like they have to curtail their appetites and their diet to like one specific thing. So before you know it, you're just dropping weight while you're already out there, and then you have this massive flight coming back, and then getting resituated in your diet, your program, and everything like that. So that's a tough one for them to have to deal with. I didn't realize it was 20 plus pounds. I thought it was a little bit less than that. Yikes.
Like for anybody, like that's a lot to come back from and start a season like that. But again, we know the talent that Mookie is. Everyone around here knows that as well as anybody. Right. And should be excited to see what the Dodgers do this year. Last thing I wanted to touch on today, especially from the MLB side, FanDuel had an odds set for the exact matchup of the World Series. You can pick pretty much any matchup that you thought. So I figured we could end the show today if we have a World Series matchup prediction. We don't have to. You can. I think that FanDuel prop is also the winner and the loser of the World Series too. We'll start with you, Kasey. Do you think you have your World Series matchup? And we can obviously check the odds in the next few days of what that is on the FanDuel prop.
True. Okay, so I'm looking at the exact results right now. I'm over on FanDuel. It's funny to see what pops up here and like where these odds lie. Like I'm seeing a lot of Diamondbacks to compete in the World Series. Are you seeing that too?
I think they do them. I think the way they did this was like alphabetical. So it's just like, because I was like going, I'm like, can I find like my? Because I'll tease mine. I had Red Sox and Dodgers there, and I had to go. That's the one thing I had to go searching for like. A big
Okay,
scroll.
yeah,
Where
it was
are the
loading. I was
Dodgers?
like, what is this doing? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'm
guys.
like, hey, I like Diamondbacks rotation, but not this much.
Give me a tech redo here. Okay, I definitely have the Dodgers going. As for from the other side, there's a part of me that really wants to hop on board and say Red Sox. I just think that exact matchup.
This is
Dodgers.
this is the peak of pizza money, by the way. Like this.
I know. this is actually like your Sprite money. Like forget the pizza, just the drink to quench your thirst here. Let's see. I'm not going Dodgers Yankees, that's for sure. I don't know why. This is horrible. Dodgers Rangers is kind of where I'm going.
I don't hate that, and especially like
27-1.
There's a lot of people that have been getting on the Rangers, and I know I preluded that earlier that I wasn't as high on them, but that's a lineup as if anybody that could get hot. And there's championships experience like that, not that far removed from winning a title down there. So I don't hate that, and I think there's good value there.
You're not gonna knock it.
I like it.
It's a good balance of experience of what they have in the room. I guess that's what I'm going with. Like they've got a good balance of, having younger guys, but the veterans that they have, after, 2023 is not that far behind us either. So it's just like, and then they feel really confident about their off-season moves. I always look closely to a team that feels confident about what they picked up. So under the gun, I would go Texas versus Los Angeles, but just know there's a part of me that really wants to throw the Red Sox in the mix.
I don't think there's like a single, there are if it's like the White Sox or something, but like I don't think there's a bad American League pick this year because we saw last year how open this league is.
Yeah.
Again, I think it runs into a totally different conversation when whichever representative meets the Dodgers, but the Yankees didn't face much adversity in the American League playoffs last year. I don't think there's a team that has really established themselves as a world beater in the American League. And that's why I like the Red Sox. And that's not just being in this market and seeing what's going on. This is from a greater spectrum of the league is, yeah, the Rangers will probably be there in the West. We'll see what happens in the Central. I kind of talked myself into the Royals a lot too. But there's not that one team that I don't think anybody should really fear in the American League. And with the additions they've made, I don't see any reason why the Red Sox can't be that team. Again, health plays a major factor. We're already seeing that early with 3 starting pitchers starting the year on the IL. But there's a lot of reason for intrigue. There could be any of those 3 teams in the American League East, I think. I think if that's how I had to go about it, any of the 3 American League East teams to match up against the Dodgers, I think is a very fair way to go about this. If it's the Orioles, the Yankees, the Red Sox. But I don't know. Now I'm thinking about that Rangers thing too, and you might have me down a rabbit hole here. I'm slowly starting to think about that. Okay, can the offense get there? And I don't know. The American League is so wide open this year. I think it's gonna be so fun to watch.
No, it's a good point. We'll really take a closer look to what happens after that series that jumps off here in Boston. But no, you're 100% right. And plus, I know some people feel like the Yankees still have a shot here, especially when guys get healthy. It's just look at what their roster was last year. And to not be able to close with that kind of roster, I don't want to jump back too closely to thinking they're going to go all the way and see them back in another series. I completely support and back what you say in terms of the Red Sox and then adding those healthy pieces. The rotation already looks so good as is. It's only going to get better when health is fully on the side for them. I had the Twins doing well for the Central because when it comes to having such ridiculous pitching depth, they've got that. The cord of guys that they can pull on to help out that team is just insane. Their biggest decision this year was really cutting down their roster to make it make sense. But and I feel like they're going to have one of those bad tastes in their mouth after their previous 2 seasons as well. A lot of people are backing what the Tigers are going to do. So the Central is just way open when it comes to the AL. Astros and Rangers, I think losing Bregman, they're going to feel it, them being the Astros. And then while you have guys that are going to step up, just a lot of those those press conferences once Bregman moved on, it just made you realize, were they able to kind of properly capitalize on the off season and prepare for what was about to come and like fill that void. And the Rangers just look too good to me for that. So that's kind of where I leaned on that one. NL could be a battle if any of those teams come crawling between the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets. But I really like the Phillies to just do some damage too.
So many fun futures to look at that feels so long away, is so far away in October, but something tells me this season's going to go by in the blink of an eye. So we should enjoy opening day while it's here. What's like the go-to ballpark snack for opening day? Is it, getting the hot dogs ready for opening day? I know there might be some fun around the NESN offices in terms of the food selection on opening day as well.
Everyone tells me immediately, gotta get a dog. Like, I've got to have that experience. I'm not the biggest hot dog person, but I think it's just because I grew up with foreign parents. So for me, it's going to be the peanuts. That's going to be my opening day snack. Nobody judge me. Don't get upset. I'll experience it at some point, but I can't promise it like opening day. I'm going to be heading for the hot dog stand. What's it
that
for
feels
you?
That feels like the fun one. I know. I was like, that's like my first step in Fenway whenever I get back there every year is like, what's the new stuff? I think I saw something the other day of like a brisket burger coming in. I think that was a Fenway. That's been like the fun like lead up to the weekend, the season. Like, all right, what does like every ballpark have like for the new food options now too?
They're adding really great things. I mean, the different kind of like food fusions that you can find now concession wise. They've changed up the kind of sliders that you can get. Actually, no, I'm not gonna pretend like I like don't eat. Like I have a very healthy appetite. I would probably find like if they have unique sliders, I'm gonna go give those ones a try. But the hot dog, it just takes me a while to get there. I'm not a hot dog gal.
I'm very quick to judge a ballpark on popcorn too, and that's why like going to college in New York, I was like big on Citi Field. Like Citi Field popcorn with the Mets was always fantastic, and it was cheap too. I don't know if it'll still be the case when they have to pay Juan Soto, but
I was going to say, I don't think it's on the cheap side anymore. None of it is. I mean, the concession food is getting pretty wild, but like you enjoy it because especially for baseball, you're there for hours and hours on end. But I remember for hockey, like back home, we started adding angel hair pasta and wine as an option.
Really?
Yes, at an arena. And I was like, okay, I didn't realize that we had to cancel dinner plans because we can have a full gourmet meal in the rink. So I heard that there's some interesting new things coming to the ballparks though.
Forget about like the premium movie theaters where you can like have like people like coming to take your order and stuff and have a plate in front of you at the movie. No, let's do that. Let's do that at the game too.
Let's do the angel hair pasta and wine and have a full decorated meal during a game. I don't think I'd be able to pay attention. I clearly didn't get the pasta, but if I'm too involved in the food that I'm not watching the game, I'm that person that where like when I'm at a game, I'm so hyper focused, at least for the beginning of things. And then I can calm down and like be present in the moment. But my friends already know, like, let's not have a bunch of questions at first. Let's not worry about food and drinks and everything. If you must get up, you go handle your business. But like, I need to focus for the first 45 minutes of a game.
Should be a very fun opening day and all the festivities that go into it. Again, Red Sox and Rangers, the really focus here on NESN, 4:05, the first pitch. Can't wait to tune into that one and hope you'll tune in all season long. But that'll do it for this edition of The Spread. For Kasey Hudson, I'm Tim Crowley. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you back here next week as the sports world continues.